Mhm.
Hi guys, and welcome to another interview on Magic Interviews. This is the second one on the channel. Today I'm going to be interviewing a brilliant comedy magician and a member of the Magic Circle. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the hilarious Paul Regan. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thank you. I'm just doing this channel, I guess.
Excellent.
I just wanted to ask you a few
Sure.
questions about, because obviously we're in lockdown. And
Mhm.
you're obviously you're a magician, and you usually would I be right in saying you usually go to London to do a lot of your magic?
Yeah, so I live in Hertfordshire, so it's a pretty easy commute by train straight into London. So not all of my gigs, but your day-to-day residency type ones, or just covering residencies, it's always really going to be in London for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like obviously with lockdown, it's been hard for like especially people that do magic in London, because London is such a big busy place. Um
Mhm.
and I obviously I'm only young, as everyone can hear. But I'm obviously I've never done a gig before, but I've been up to London and I know what the rush is. It's so busy.
Mhm.
Um and you would I be right in saying you do busking?
I used to. I stopped because it's really hard and very cold in winter. But I did used to busk. Yes, Covent Garden area, and thereabouts. So I did actually busk around the country for a little bit, but yeah, mostly Covent Garden.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well, I So, Paul, basically, the guy wants to know, um, what would you say? So, what would you say when, because he does a lot of walk around, right?
Yeah.
Um, and he does it just like people walking by in his shopping centre. And
Oh, with you. Yes.
he wants to know how can he be more approachable to people?
It's very hard. So it depends. When you're busking, you've got to decide the kind of vibe you're going for. Now, a lot of musicians, for example, when they busk, people walk by and they'll throw money, and they'll only have heard it maybe walking down the corridor. They'll hear a song they like, they chuck some money, and they keep walking. With magic, you've got a few different ways you can go. So when I would perform it, I'd see it as building an audience, building a show. You want to get people around you. Um, you've got to get a critical mass. If you've got the right space, the right shape, you're looking at maybe 8 to 10 people. Once you've got that, the crowd builds itself. But building that crowd initially is very hard. There's a few different ways of doing it. If you're allowed to, if you're able to, music is a great way of building an audience, building a crowd, playing something very poppy, very kind of really something that people know and they'll kind of move to, that attracts people straight away. If you can't do that, you can literally just stop people. Hey, come around here. We're going to do a magic show. I need a few people. Come along. You've got nothing else to do. You're waiting for someone to go get something. Once you stop building a crowd that way, then the crowd builds itself. It's all about crowd control and starting off with them relatively close to you, so as though you're almost doing close up. Then, as more people come, you control the space. You control your stage, if you like. Start moving them out. That's what I would do. There's different ways of doing it. Other magicians would create a shape straight away. A classic is putting down ropes or a chain. But again, they'll normally start it smaller and then make it bigger as the crowd gets bigger.
Yeah,
So, go on.
I think I really like the bit where you said about the music. I
Yeah.
think
So
that's really interesting.
music's a great thing to do, but there's a lot of restrictions on that. From anything from the area, you're not allowed to maybe use amplification, to the music you're using and the right to broadcast. And there's lots of complications if you want to get really into it. And you said this, your friends in a shopping center. So I'm assuming that means open air. If it's an indoor shopping center, there's no way he's going to be allowed to broadcast music. If it's open air shopping center, it's probably going to be private property still. Um, so there may or may not be issues with it. I don't know. I can't say without obviously getting into the details there. But using music is great. So an amplification system, they don't have to be the most expensive in the world, but you do want something. You'll play music crispy, but then you can also use a lapel mic or a mic that kind of, you know, goes over your ears around. You've probably seen a lot of those being used. They're very good. I really recommend getting one of those. They're not expensive. Technology is really, really affordable these days. Through, you don't even use cables or anything particularly. You can run it through your phone these days. So there's loads of ways to do it. So just these are things to look into. And if your voice being loud, it will generate an audience. The other things you can do is tricks that are noisy. So the linking rings can be used to maybe build an audience, because there's that sound, there's the movement that can help build an audience. Things that are quite interactive, that are quite big, can be used to build an audience. Things where you're drawing people in. So I would open my set. Once I've got maybe 4 or 5 people, I then start pulling out objects of curiosity. So I'd use my trap for the world's most dangerous card trick, or even just assembling the table. Putting the table together is an object of curiosity, and these can really get people coming around. But it all depends on what you're doing. If you're going for football, people walking past you, bus for a good few years. And I did last Christmas, I went out with Brendan Rodriguez, and he said, well, let's try some busking. And I was like, well, we can. I'm a bit rusty, but we tried it, and it was at a shopping center. And because it's a shopping center, people are walking. You go to a shopping center because you want to go from A to B to C and get home. You're not going to experience the wonderful wholeness of the thing. If you go, people go to Covent Garden, they expect to see street entertainers. If you go to your local shopping center, you might not. Now, it may or may not play in your favor. But where we were, because it was Christmas, people were clearly in a bit of a rush. It was quite hard to build a crowd. Brendan was doing quite well just by doing his normal show-off stuff. So he would do his crystal ball as people were walking past. That's perfect. That just kind of visual thing, bit of music. Wow, hang on. And if you have a look at his YouTube channel, I don't want to send people away from yours. If you have a look at his YouTube channel, you'll see how we tried to do it. We didn't do great that day. But it was, I mean, I forgot to bring my table. So half my magic was like, well, I can't do this. So I was just kind of doing, I think I just did rope tricks the whole day and a few card tricks. But yeah, there's things like that. The other things are, I mean, if we're talking general doing street, I would always recommend trying to get volunteers, and using volunteers that are young and cute, as in children, is the way forward. The other, and then also, the thing with busking, you've got to realize that once people have seen a trick, they're happy and they'll move on.
Yeah.
So if you've got maybe a 10-15 minute set or spot that you're doing, or longer, if you do a trick, people will walk away. Yeah. So you want to make sure it's very different to close up. And I had to learn this when I started busking, is with close up, you're doing trick, 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 thank you very much. With busking, it's you've got to show a bit of ankle. If you've got to kind of say, so that's why the first thing I'm putting out is the last trick I'm going to do. And, and I'm going to come back to that. Watch, I'm going to come back to this. Let's go over here. Let's do this. And then, you go on.
I think I also, one of the reasons why I think the music thing really interested me was because I don't know if you've seen him, but there's a magician called Magical Bones. And he said in an interview, he said when he was doing street performances, he would put on music and he would start, because he can break dance, right? Yeah. When he was on Britain's Got Talent, he did a backflip and caught a card. It's like a variation of the card stab. And he did that, and he'd do it he'd start dancing, and then he'd pull out magic. And I think that was very interesting how you said that, because it worked for him, because I've seen pictures, loads of crowds.
It works. So if you go to Covent Garden and you see the performers down there, there's a guy called Sergio who is my go-to example of how to his audience control is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody build an audience as quickly and as well as he does. And literally he'll just put on a piece of music, walk out. That's it. That is the noise. Yep. Okay. And suddenly it's a crowd. I have no idea how he does it. I can't do it. I used the same music. I asked him, I said, would you mind if I try? Go ahead. No, I still took me ages to build a crowd. The guy just has something that just builds a crowd. And it's tough. John Lenihan, really great magician. We were talking, he used to be a street magician back in the 80s, and he toured Ireland, and that was how he got his chops. But he was saying he went back to doing street just as a kind of to try it out. He said, yeah, you lose it. It's hard to build a crowd. It's very hard. So really you develop your own techniques and you get into it. There's different ways of doing it. As I said, John would Sergio would play music. Another street magician who I greatly admire, a guy called Owen Lean, he would talk. He would just talk, and he'd gather a crowd by talking to people. He had a bit of music, but really it was the chat, and it was unbelievable. He could hypnotize people with his voice. The way he performed was brilliant.
I think that well, to be honest, by the way, you know, with Brendan, was that a video?
Yeah.
I will link that in the description.
Yeah, chat in the description, and you'll see how badly I did. It was a struggle. It was a hard day, that one. I'd not done street for literally, I think it was probably 2 years. Brendan was like, let's do some busking. Are you sure? This is not going to go as well as you think it might. So no, we'll just be honest. Let's not be honest, Brendan. Let's say we made £200 each. But it was fine. You know, Brendan is one of my favourite people. And it's very, very funny. Yeah, you have to scroll back a bit. It was last Christmas. But
I'll definitely find it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that definitely answered that guy's question. I mean, that was a hell of a lot of stuff. Thank you, Paul.
That's okay,
really
man. That's
brilliant.
okay.
I mean, that guy's busking knowledge is going to be higher than anyone else's.
Okay, the way I learned busking was I just did it constantly, and I listened to the advice of the guys I admired. That's the way you learn to busk. Just do it. You're walking your own path. You're finding your own way, but you're also hearing about the pitfalls and suggestions from other people.
Yes.
That is the way to get better at busking, is just keep doing it and you'll get better. As with anything, any magic,
exactly.
just keep doing it.
Yeah, no, it's like with anything, the more you do it, as long as you're doing it the right way, you'll get better, and you'll learn more. So obviously,
I just want to turn that off. Okay, sorry, you're probably hearing beeps. So I've got a new mic on. Normally you can't hear what my computer says.
Don't worry, I can't hear anything. It's all
okay. All right. Well, it's turned off anyway, so I'm not distracted at least.
All right. So at the beginning, I spoke about the whole we're in lockdown thing.
Yes.
And I just wanted to talk to you about. I was actually going to ask. So, Paul, I was actually going to ask you. Obviously, at the beginning I asked you about lockdown, and we're kind of talking about that for a bit. And obviously, a lot of magicians have gone to Zoom now. I was just wondering, do you have your own Zoom show?
Okay, I do, with a huge but caveat there. I do have my own Zoom show. It took me a while to get amped up for it. First off, I think it's great that magicians are using Zoom, and it's great for finding a voice and a place to perform still and get income. The issue is I struggled with setup. I share a house, so it was hard for me to work out how to. In fact, speaking of showing a house, you're probably going to hear somebody coming through the kitchen where I'm talking, and that's fine. It just makes my point beautifully. So it was negotiating a time where I could do performances in a space where I wouldn't be disturbing other people and people wouldn't be disturbing me. So people who are sharing houses, or maybe don't have a great space, or maybe don't have the kind of technical setup, they were struggling with Zoom, and I kind of fell into that category. I've now developed a show around my work, around the space I have to work, and it works very nicely, it works very well. But, and I think this is really important with Zoom, is you have to ask yourself, I think, why you're a magician. Now, I have a job, not that long ago, my full-time, pretty well paid job to become a magician. And even before lockdown, that was never going to, at least not for a good few years, pay as well. So I did it because I love magic. I love magic because of the interaction and the effect it has live. I don't really watch a lot of magic on TV or anything like that. And Zoom just, for me, doesn't have the same impact.
Yeah.
And I have Zoom shows now that people have said, oh, hang on, they'd seen another magician or another thing, and parts have been pre-recorded. And I think when we do Zoom shows, we have to ask ourselves, why are people engaging us as magicians? Now, is it because they want to watch magic? No, it's not. Because if it was, they would watch David Copperfield on YouTube, because David Copperfield is clearly a better magician than me. And if you just want to watch magic, just watch him on YouTube. It's going to be, amazing magic. I'll admit that David Copperfield's better than me. I'm prepared to make that sacrifice. I'll put that out there. But they're not
I'm
Ask her
prepared to
just-
make anyone's
I'm
better than me.
Oh, I teach a 5-year-old. You're better than her. There you go, man. Feel good.
That means a lot,
Um,
Paul. Thank
You're,
you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. But I what people are buying with any Zoom experience, not just magic, what they're buying is connection to a person. That's what matters. And I really believe that. I believe that with all performance. The reason magic is at its strongest when you have that connection.
Yeah. So
Uh,
just to make that clearer, do you mean like because of the interaction? Do you mean like like because it's right in front of your eyes, or?
Okay, so yeah, it's not. First off, it needs to be live. For me, a Zoom show needs to be live, and it doesn't matter if it's
Oh,
magic
yeah,
or a
100%.
escape room or a pub quiz, because you can buy these things now, and it's just pre-recorded stuff, and that's not what people want. I was talking to somebody today. We were talking about my Zoom gig, and they were talking about an experience they'd paid for, or rather, their company had, and it was a pub quiz, but it was all pre-recorded stuff. 30% of the people left after 20 minutes and all they did was, so it was company time. They said, well, we're just going to go do work. They would rather work than do this pub quiz.
Oh, it must have been terrible.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if you're on the clock, you're just thinking, well, I'm not, imagine that. You would rather work than do this pub quiz. That's just mind blowing. And it's not necessarily because it was a bad quiz, it's because the interaction isn't there.
Yeah.
There's no communication, there's no back and forth, and that's not just between the performer and his audience, but it's amongst the audience themselves. So when I perform, I say, you're going to be muted just because I know that you might have stuff in the background, but if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead, chat, talk to me, and you've got to talk to me. And when I do stuff, I make sure I'm talking to people as much as possible, and any really good Zoom magician will say the same. It's very, very important. And then, of course, you have interactive tricks and whatever. Again, there's been a slew of tricks released now that work really well on Zoom. And they might use the fact that you're on camera as opposed to in person to maybe get a stronger visual effect. And that's great. But again, these are all monetary investments. So when you're dealing with a group like magicians who haven't worked for a long time, this is a slightly, I've gone a little bit left of traffic lights here, but bear with me. Magicians who haven't worked for a long time, and a lot of us aren't receiving any real money from the government either. Again, it's like, well, these are great effects, but 40, 50 pounds for a trick is an investment. For me, right now, with my income, that 40, 50 pounds is a bit of an investment. So I've noticed a bit of a quieting down from some of my friends who maybe haven't got the money to spend on their Zoom shows. And I'm not saying Zoom shows have to be hugely expensive. You can absolutely make up for it with creativity, which is what I've done. But at the moment, it's very interesting to me, Zoom shows. And I should say as well, I do think Zoom is going to be around. Zoom shows are going to be around, not necessarily for friends and that, but this is let's go crazy and make a prediction. People are going to be working from home more often. That's just going to happen now. People are going to work from home. And as that's the case, but companies are still going to want to keep that camaraderie and team spirit. I think Zoom shows are going to be happening for more and more in the corporate world, more and more for companies.
I mean, it's great for magic clubs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lectures. I mean, my magic club, we've been having people from all over the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always been very passionate about this. This technology is not new. It's not like Zoom is doing anything that we hadn't seen before, for years. So it's wonderful that we're seeing this. It's great. Talk about magic clubs. That's great. Let's talk about people who have been excluded from the workplace for years. Suddenly it's like, look, no, these people who've been saying this for years, just allow us to attend meetings via Skype, just allow us to work, from home. We can do the job. And for years it's been stopped. They'd be stopping able to do this. But now there's no argument that clearly a lot of work can be done from home, can be done by people across the world. So I think we're going to see a leveling, which is great because companies are driven by profit. They want to employ the best people at the best price. So things are going to change, I think, quite a bit in certain industries.
Yeah.
I think magic, a lot of people are saying, oh, is it ever going to go back? Is this going to happen? Yes, it will. Because above all, we love being around people. In that little weird time between lockdown and Christmas when we were able to perform for a while, I was doing some gigs, and it's quite obvious that people need that contact and crave that kind of interaction. So magic shows are not going to go away. No shows are going to go away. I think we're going to see stand-up comedy is going to make a bit of research because it's the safest and easiest thing. It's one person on a stage with a mic and you can seat the audience. So that is your first step. That's a very safe environment for entertainment. It's going to be very relatively easy to have restrictions and safeties in place with stand-up comedy. Magic as parlor is one step away from that. We just got to get out of the habit of giving people cards. You know, if we just don't give people cards, if we do stuff where that's not happening, we're safe. Don't have volunteers, but socially distance your volunteers. Have them stand up or from the audience. Can we do that? Yes, of course we can. I do that regularly when I was doing street with my cups and balls, or some of my routines. I would just call out to people in the audience. I'd use people in the audience. We can do that as magicians. So we've learned what we need to do is bring the techniques that we've learned from Zoom. You know, you can't fan cards on Zoom. We've ways of getting people to choose a card. Transpose that straight into your act on stage. Now, are there certain tricks we're not going to be able to do, you know, at least for a while? Yes, absolutely. Anything where you're touching a spectator or a spectator has to be close to you on stage or hold your hand or anything like that, we're going to have to ask serious questions about these tricks, I think, for a while.
No, there was actually there's a video. Oh, I can't remember who it was. In the editing, I'll put it right there.
Yeah.
There was a video and it said tricks we're not going to be able to do for possibly months and months and months. And it was tricks like you know, like when you do tournament storm, and there is a tournament storm in the mouth. Yeah.
I do that. That is one of my favorite tricks.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't know what you think on this, but I don't think people will be able to do this as much.
I think you'd be crazy. You can, but it's going to raise questions. Other ones, well, we're not going to be able to do that. We shouldn't be doing that.
No.
Take that out. And seriously, like we're saying that, but any trick where you've shuffled a deck of cards and you're asking someone to take a card, put it back, shuffle it, and ask someone else to use the same deck, clearly that is not something we should be doing. So even fundamentals, like we say, there are certain tricks. There are certain things I think we as magicians might be questioning at least for a while. But as I've said, Zoom has shown us that we don't have to have somebody reach in and take a card. Zoom has shown us that you can interact with people without touching them. So you can get them on stage and you can make a thing of it. So I was lucky enough to perform at the Circle a few times before the Christmas lockdown. And then the next thing I was like, okay, so I've had to change my show because of COVID, and that's fine, but it means I'm going to be doing more of a street style performance. Are we okay with that? Do you mind if we do a street style show instead of my regular? Oh yeah, that'd be great, that'd be fine, brilliant. At which point I pulled out a hat and put it on the floor. It got another big laugh because
that is a good one, Paul. That's,
you know, I think that mentalism could be amazing. Imagine that, just how powerful it can suddenly be.
I was going to say that. There's a guy I know, and in his bio of his Instagram, it's just these words: reading minds through screens.
Yeah.
Because now you're on Zoom. Not only are you reading a mind, you know how, you know, you get those people, you know, it's a bit like in magic, if you watch like these how to make a trick more effective, a lot of the time they say distance. So if I make a card change and it's 2 meters away from the deck compared to if I make a card change and it's like right next to the deck. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And now we're all the way away and you're still apparently doing mind reading, which is so impressive to...
I just think that you can... Mentalism creates an intimacy between the performer and the audience that is harder to achieve with maybe a more sleight of hand magic. And that intimacy is what we've lost and we've been lacking. So I think that it could be very strong. We could start seeing some very strong magic that way. I think that'd be really interesting. And I look forward to seeing what really innovative magicians come up with.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about buying a trick and performing it. I just think that great performers rise to the occasion, and this is a unique occasion, and it's not going to last forever. And it will be one that we can use to our advantage and create something very special for us and the audience to enjoy together.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be honest with you, Paul. I don't write my questions down, but before I come in, I think of all these questions I could ask you. And when I asked you, did you do a Zoom show? You answered about 5 of them. So thank you for that. And
that's okay. I ramble. I do ramble.
No,
anyone who's seen me perform those.
I'm on a Zoom because it's Zoom and I don't have Pro. Yeah. I'm on a. It's a bit tight for time usually, but I you know, it's great because you've answered all these questions. One of my questions was, how can you make a Zoom show? What do you think is bad in a Zoom show? Well, you've said pre-recorded stuff. I was sitting there thinking, this is like a magic show in itself. He's doing some mentalism on me. No,
well, well, I'm glad that I'm kind of thinking along your lines then and answering things a little bit in advance. I should say though, with full disclosure, I mean, Zoom shows they're not exactly my bag. So there'll be other magicians who maybe will be able to offer insight. And it's really important to hear different ideas on what magic is capable of. And there might be magicians who absolutely adore it and love Zoom and just think it's the greatest thing ever. So
yeah, you know what? I think it's all about when I've only done. You're my second person to do an interview, and
I very much enjoyed Luke's interview. He was excellent.
Thank you very much, Paul.
To be honest, I was complimenting Luke there, not you. So you know, maybe you were fine. Just listen to the words.
Oh my God! No, obviously I know you, Paul. It's very easy to ask you if you come on, and it was so it was great. Obviously, I still got quite a few. Not a few. I got a couple last things I'd like to ask you because we got
go ahead, my friend.
minutes because of the Zoom thing.
You should have said, because I could have, you know, because I do Zoom shows. I have got Pro. I could have done it for you, mate.
Oh no, it's all right. Don't worry, Paul.
Okay.
It's all good. But so one of the things that I want, I didn't actually want to ask you this. I wanted to just say, when you say about interactiveness, it's great because that, you know, there are big magicians, people with big names, and those type of magicians that are now doing Zoom shows. So I don't know, for instance, you know, I spoke about him earlier, Magical Bones. He's doing a big Zoom show, right? With it'll probably have, he said, like maybe like 150 people in it, and usually he'd be in like this big stadium because he had a live tour coming. He'd be in he'd be in this big stadium with all these people. And you know what I think I love about this? What I do love about Zoom, I love about Zoom that everyone is in the front row. You can pick anyone you want in like if you're at on a stage, you can't say, well, I mean, you can get people down, but everyone's got that front row experience. You know what I mean?
You they have, and what I'm going to say very quickly, something that I do in my show, and I do it when I do it, you're normally booked by one person. I'm not Bones. I don't have 100 people all wanting to see my show. I have one person who thinks, let's get a magician. I get booked to do a show for probably, you know, 15, 20, however many it is. Normally, occasionally not. But in that situation, what I would suggest is for names of people who would be up for volunteering, because it's really awkward in Zoom when you say, hey, Kathy, you want to help me out? Kathy? Hey, Kathy. Don't worry. Kathy's gone quiet. John, would you? John?
Kathy, I can see you looking the other way on your camera.
John, and they're like, no. So that's just a quick thing that I found works very nice, is finding out who would be up for volunteering beforehand, and also who doesn't want to volunteer.
Oh yeah, 100%. No, I
Because
mean,
when I do a live show, sorry, I was quickly say, when I do live show, I never ask for volunteers. I say, hi, I'd like you to help me. But I do that after having a lot of experience. I don't always get it right, but it means I can pick the right person for the right trick. And it also means that I can ignore people I don't want on stage, because you can get that read from the audience. You can't get that read, at least not to the level I manage in person on Zoom. So I think doing that little bit of homework really makes a big difference for me. It might not work for everybody, but it's just something to chuck out there that people might find useful.
yeah, no, you know what? I feel like, yeah, I think that, to be honest with you, like it's great that, and I definitely agree with you, by the way. If anyone's watching and they've got a Zoom show, definitely do that. If like someone doesn't want to be, obviously, Paul, as you say, if it's just like a family that want you to do a Zoom show, like maybe for a birthday or something, then well, they probably will get picked. That's because
Yeah.
there's no one else there. There's no one to be embarrassed by. You know? Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
no, I'm just saying, if you get booked by a company or
Yeah.
a group or whatever it might be, if they are adults, or children are trickier. Yeah, but I would say it doesn't hurt to ask. Children you can normally cajole along. Adults will just be like, no, don't want to do it. So, and it will kill your show. It will kill your momentum if you're trying to do something and you're just like, hey, and it just
Yeah,
makes
I
such
mean,
a difference.
even if you've just like printed out the list next to you, like
Yeah.
then you can just go through, like, or maybe, you know what, if you've got, I don't know if you've got this, but I know someone that's got a Zoom show. He's very young, he's my age. He's got a Zoom show and he's got someone, well actually he's my age, so his mum sits on a different computer and pins the person.
He's got a tech person in essence.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
so I operate on my own.
Yeah.
What I do is when I've got the names, I write them out in a big black pen, just the first names, don't anything else, as long as there's not there's two Johns or two whatevers. But I just big black pen so I can see it from wherever I am. So my show, I do some closer to the camera, and I move further away because I do some more parlor magic. So, but I can see these names no matter where I am.
Yes.
So that's how I do manage that. I don't need to see my audience
Yeah.
on Zoom. What I do is I don't like seeing myself performing because it's distracting. So I don't watch myself. I just put it on gallery view.
Yeah. Okay.
And then if I'm asking for a volunteer, they will crop up when I need them to. But if you can have somebody pinning for you, the person you're talking to, that is ideal. And I do it when I'm doing certain tricks and I need to see them above all else. I'll do that when I'm doing my close-up stuff. I've chosen certain tricks for certain times, so you know.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And you know what? I mean, there are some tricks that I mean, you know, when I've been on like family quizzes and stuff, and they've asked me to do, can I do a little trick? And there are some tricks that I've done, and it is like I did my own little version of Triumph that I do, and I don't have a Zoom show. I haven't done that. So I thought it was quite funny because I was kind of expecting someone to pick a card.
Yeah.
I found out the deck. I was like, just pick any card. And I was like, oh, wait, you can't. It's finding the right tricks that fit for Zoom. So whether that's taking tricks you already do and making them compatible for Zoom, or I don't know.
When I started, I thought, okay, got to do close up. I'll just do my my aces routine. I don't do it very often, but it's not bad. It's pretty impressive, especially if you're a lay person. And it's 3 stages because, of course, it is. And then I hit the middle one, and I suddenly thought, oh, I need someone to cut these cards. I was just like, oh, right. So we'll just skip the middle phase entirely. And so you suddenly and tiny plunger. The first tricks I learned, love a bit of tiny plunger, me. But suddenly I'm thinking, this is rubbish on Zoom. This is awful. So yeah, when I got my first Zoom gig, I was kind of like, oh God, what can I pull out? I just what I learned is actually don't. Yeah, that was a steep learning curve, my first Zoom show. Halfway, but luckily, I'm able to improvise quite quickly. I think on my feet, so I just changed things around, and it worked nicely.
Paul,
I should say, oh yeah,
it's telling me I've got 1 minute left.
okay, man.
So,
Okay.
If you want to just say what you had to say. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you if you've got 1 minute left, you've got 1 minute left, my friend. Don't worry about it.
All right. Thank you very much. Oh, Paul, thank you for coming on. That was so
Pleasure.
fun. Thank
Pleasure,
you.
no problem.
We are filming the video today. It will be out next week because I do one a week.
Okay, buddy.
So,
Just let me know, and I'll push it on my channel. Don't you worry.
Oh, thank you, Paul. That's so kind of you. Thank
Take
you.
care, brother.
Thank
You're
you for
welcome. Well, there
coming
you go.
on. See you, Paul.
Pleasure.